Stay tuned for the Joan Quinn Profiles. Joan served the state of California as a member on the Arts Council and on the Film Commission. She was formerly on the Architectural Commission and fulfilled 2 terms on the Fine Arts Commission for the city of Beverly Hills. As an editor for Andy Warhol's Interview magazine, Condé Nast Publications, and the Hearst Corporation, Joan covered the world of fashion, the mysteries of food, the excitement of theater, and the international art scene. She continues to find people who are on the cutting edge of their professions. Here's Joan AGAJAINIAN Quinn.
Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome to the Joan Quinn Profiles. We're taping here at the Hollywood Museum on Highland Avenue in the heart of Hollywood. Our guests are writer Kristen Newman and writer-performer Ben Moroski. Writer-author Kristen Newman grew up in Long Beach. I was born in Long Beach. Went to Long Beach Polytechnic and then graduated from Northwestern University in Chicago. She's a veteran of more than 20 years in Hollywood, writing for so many comedies like that 70s show. That's Phil Bean, Chuck. What else?
Your Mother, The Neighbors.
All those things. And then you co-produced ABC's The Neighbors.
The Neighbors. Exactly. Yeah. Well, you know, it's just a title for writers, so I got a producer title on a lot of those. But really what I am is a writer.
Is that what you really are?
Yeah, I call you a producer when you start to make enough money.
Okay, so maybe during that time when you were producing, maybe, is that when you got to write your book, What I Was Doing While You Were Breeding?
I started writing it a couple of years ago, and it was after 15 years of travels that people were always saying, I hope you're writing these stories down.
Oh, you were already traveling.
Yes, started traveling in my 20s. I'm not in my 20s, you may be surprised to hear.
And how did you physically write it, this book?
You mean, how did I find the time?
How did you physically? Did you
with
do it
my
like...
fingers on a computer.
You did do a computer.
Yes.
Did you have a diary for all those years?
I did have a lot of diaries. But I also just filled in a lot of blanks. And also I did a lot of digging through old emails with people I kept in touch with, or emails I was writing home to friends and family while I was traveling, and that gave me some good bits of dialogue.
So were there 15 years ago, I don't want to sound like ancient, but were there emails then?
Not back then, you're right. But starting the last 10.
Because I don't know if there were. So did people keep your letters?
The emails I just had, but before that it was all journal stuff.
And so how did you then go through and edit it?
Well, I sat down at first to just write a couple of funny stories. I had gotten some pilots that sold and things like that off of kind of autobiographical David Sedaris turned stories in the past. And so I sat down to write a couple of stories about my sexy vacation romances. And it suddenly was 60 pages in a week and only 3 chapters and 3 trips. The book is structured such that it's 1 chapter per trip.
Per trip, and how many chapters?
Well, 14 chapters, and I only wrote about a small amount of the trips.
Ah, so you were very gutsy, though, to write about the things you wrote about.
I don't really have a sense of privacy. That's something that has,
But what about the other people? They were involved, too.
Well, I changed everyone's names.
Oh, I was going to ask you that.
I did, and I gave all my girlfriends and my mother the book with a red pen, and they got to edit anything that they wanted to edit.
Before?
Them, yes.
The other thing is you talk about all these things. You talk about writing for these comedies and the writer's table and the writer's room. What does that mean?
Well, we write collaboratively to write.
And how do you? Do you fight? How many people are you?
Yes, so we'll be anywhere between maybe 7 and 14 people usually, and there is a boss. And that's the only way that you get home at night is because they're saying yes, no, as we argue.
Oh, there is a boss.
Yes, exactly.
And then do these other people, are there just a core amount of people who are there all the time, and then other people come in?
It's just the writing staff is the writing staff.
That's it?
And you're there all day long around a table yelling at each other and eating food that people bring you and, getting fatter and getting to know each other's stories very well.
But then they listen to you because you're using your own personal, is everyone using personal stories?
Yeah, and that's my favorite part about my
They are?
Is that the first day of work, picture going into work at a bank on your first day and saying, here's what I fought with my boyfriend in the shower about this morning.
And you hear it at the bank.
Right away, but we do it in a comedy room, and it's my favorite part. You get to know people really intimately, really fast, and there's no small talk. And by the end of 9 months with somebody in a comedy room, you're best friends because you know every story about each other.
It's like a shrink class, a shrink
It is,
session.
and all of us are all in the shrink all the time too, so we're good at it.
So you use your group therapy, and then they don't say, no, Kristen, we can't use that because you took that trip and we don't want to use it in the 70s show or Chuck or, no?
If it's got something that works, it's got something that works.
So
on How I Met Your Mother, Robin brought back her Argentinian boyfriend for season 2 or 3 or something like that, and that was, my same time next year Argentine boyfriend.
That was you?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, so let's go back to your boyfriends. Iceland.
Iceland, no boys in Iceland.
No.
No, they were very handsome and very tall, but the romance didn't happen. I was there with a girlfriend, and that trip seemed to be more about being outside on fuzzy horses and getting tossed into the tundra and talking to tall Icelandic men about fairies and gnomes, which they definitely believe in. And, the most sexual experience I had was getting a floating massage in the Blue Lagoon. Where they
that sounded good.
While you float in a hot spring.
That sounded good. So that didn't have any boyfriends.
No.
But Russia, with Sasha, your girlfriend,
Sure.
had a boyfriend that couldn't speak English.
Sure, no English at all. But Sasha could speak some Russian, so she could translate a little bit. So I could say, how do you say, your skin makes me cry? And then she would translate for me, things like that.
And he would say, Christiana.
Kristinachka.
Kristinachka.
Yeah, it's the cutest way. It's the cutest way.
And that's all you wanted to
That
hear?
was fine, that was enough.
For how long?
Well,
A week?
2 days maybe.
Oh, 2 days.
Oh, yeah. But then I would call him. I went to France next, and I would call him, and I would just say, Oleg. And he would say, Kristinachka. I'd say, Oleg. He would say, Kristinachka. And, we connected more than I've connected a lot at Starbucks in West Hollywood with people who speak my language.
You think that connection happened?
For sure.
For sure. Okay, let's go on to another country.
Uh-huh. Any other country?
Brazil?
Sure, Brazil. Brazil.
How do you remember all these things?
Well, they're very, they really get in there. These are very intense times.
Brazil.
And the book also, tells the stories of a lot of these romances and a lot of these sometimes trips that are hunts for romances that don't happen, and it's all part of sort of the bigger life story that I end up telling, which is being not afraid to go travel by yourself, being not afraid to not get married even though you feel like it's supposed to be time and you don't want to be not afraid to go out and find an adventure, find a guy, put it all aside even if everyone thinks that you're wasting your youth and your marketable years. If you're not ready to get married, you're not ready to get married, and I wasn't for a long time.
You're going through that. And your friends are married, and you're going through that. What is it? Well, they're breeding. Well, they're having kid after kid, right? And then getting divorced.
Yeah, a lot of times I'm coming back around for another trip or two.
Oh, with you.
And sometimes getting married again before I get married the first time. And I said to my friend in the book, I said, God, you've done it twice before, I've done it once. And she said, well, Kristen, I'm not sure that the point is to do it as often as possible.
So she's like, but the thing is so great the way you write, because you don't want to put it down. It's really interesting. It's like you're talking to us, and I'm going, how did you write that sentence? It's so funny, or it's so leading. There's like all these different elements about the way you wrote. They're so great.
That's so nice to hear. That's really sweet to hear.
Did you take writing classes?
Well, sure. Northwestern, there was some writing school and all of that. But it's funny, I just recorded the audiobook myself.
Oh, you did?
And so reading it out loud was really interesting because, first of all, it felt much more confessional than writing it down did.
I thought it was pretty confessional. That's why I was saying, what did your family members and friends think about it?
I know, those poor people. I know. But, my mother's getting used to it. There's been a TV show about her.
Oh, there was?
Sure. She's getting used to it.
But do they know her? Where does she live?
She lives in Long Beach.
She does?
Yeah. She's brought some of her friends to some of my readings, so she must not be that ashamed. That's the good news. But she hasn't read Brazil. That's the,
Okay, tell us Brazil. Oh, it is? Oh, good.
Yeah, it's really, it's the dirtiest chapter. But the point of Brazil is that a lot of profound things happen to me on my trips. Nothing profound happened in Brazil, but that's okay too. That sometimes you're made to feel, especially as a woman, that if you're not on the track to the goal, which is supposed to be eventually, in addition to other things, maybe we're feminists, we can work and blah, 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 getting married and having babies. That's the
But
real
that
goal.
was the goal
No,
of
it
these
wasn't.
trips? No, it
wasn't.
wasn't.
But I
No.
feel like we're often made to
Oh, you
that
feel
if
like
we're
you.
living a life that isn't on that track.
Right.
That we're somehow wasting time. And Brazil absolutely was not on any track. It didn't build anything of import. But it was fun. And I think that everybody should have a little bit of too much in their life. A little bit of too wild. A little bit of crazy. Or else, how do you know what that feels like? And how do you feel okay when it's time to settle down and have a quieter time?
So there was a boyfriend, obviously.
There were 2 in one day.
Oh, there were.
But it was, to be fair, there was a domestic flight in between them. One was on an island for a whole week, so he was a real important relationship. And then there was a domestic
Oh, you had a
flight.
week?
It was a week with the one, so that's not trashy.
No.
That's a relationship. And then there was just a domestic flight in between, but that kept it all in within 24 hours once I got
Oh,
to
so
the
that
second
was the
one.
second one? You
Yeah.
just left the one on the island
Oh,
and that was
sure.
it?
Yeah, yeah. I heard from him a few weeks later where he asked if so he had found suddenly the plane fare to fly to Los Angeles.
Oh, what'd you
even though
say?
I paid for everything in Brazil, but he's asked if I could pay for 3 weeks of food and parties. And I said, I'm just not going to be able to pay for the food and parties, but I'd love to see you if you visit. And then I never heard from him.
Did you
You
pay
can't
for
ship
him?
them home, Joan.
Did you
If you
pay?
ship them home, they don't leave your house.
Well, you did ship somebody home.
That's true, I did. One time.
Oh, you did?
Well, one person.
One person.
Yeah. That's
And what
true.
happened?
Father won. Well, it was 7 years of meeting up in his country or meeting up in my country.
It was a
or
long time.
Meeting in between. Sometimes there'd be years in between. And we are still dear friends, and I still care for him deeply, but we were very different. He
Where'd
was
you
almost
ship
a
him from?
priest.
Oh.
Buenos Aires.
Oh, Buenos Aires,
Yes.
isn't it the best?
It's just the best country in the world. It's the best city in the world. I just love Argentina.
And you fell in love with someone who was
Almost
a good
priest.
person.
A good person, a lovely person. He brought me to his family for Semana Santa on the Pampas and the Campo. And, I went to weddings with his friends, and he came to Thanksgiving with my family in Los Angeles. And it was lovely, but we're too different, and it was not meant to be.
Okay, well, you found someone. I don't know, is this a spoiler or not?
It's
Because
a big spoiler.
I don't think it really is, because the book is so enjoyable. It doesn't matter if you're married or not married.
Oh, good. I'm glad.
So
I'm
you just-
married, everybody.
Oh,
3
all
days
right.
married.
Tell them what happened.
Wow.
Did you bring this guy home?
I did. I brought him up. No, he's an LA writer. He is right in my circle of people. I say in the book that I had to travel further to find a nice guy in my own town, that I had to travel to find Father Juan or Oleg or Cristiano or any of the boys around the world. And I did. I could never have made this choice, which is a nice guy with two kids who lives, in my town, as domestic and close as you could possibly pick. And I would never have been able to do that 10 years ago without this experience of all of this travel.
And how did he feel about the book? We've covered your mother. Now we have the husband.
Well, I did. I gave him the first few chapters that I took out to sell, and said, if it's too much, let me know. I won't publish it. And,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh, so you've been with him for a while.
Yeah, it's been 3 years now.
Oh, good.
And so before I shopped the book, I gave him the chapters, and he sat down at a bar with a drink, and he read it, and he was entirely supportive. I write about the sex that I write about is not like 50 Shades of Grey, I write
No.
about it out of humor, out of fun,
Right.
and he understood that it was for entertainment. He's got 2 kids and an
Enter-
ex-wife. He's had a past too.
But the other thing is, it's like when you talk about what you've written, you want to go, oh, oh,
Out of
oh,
horror for me, or
Oh.
out of horror for when it exactly happened to you, Jen.
Whatever.
I know you've been to Brazil.
what I have, but I went with my husband. But it's like, oh, oh.
Oh dear, yeah, that happened a lot.
But
Yeah.
it was fun.
It was
You
so
still enjoyed it.
fun. It was such a fun time, and you know what? I hope that if women read this, and I wrote it to be entertaining. I didn't write it to teach anyone how to live any sort of life.
And it was entertaining.
I'm so
And I thank you. Do you have pictures
I have
that go with
pictures. I'll
it?
put them online. If you want.
Okay, great. Send them to Gary.
I will. Okay, Gary, you got it.
Thanks for watching. We'll be right back with performer Ben Moroski. Hi, I'm Joan Quinn, and welcome back to the Joan Quinn Profiles. We're taping here at the Hollywood Museum, and I'm with writer, performer Ben Moroski, who was born and raised in Davis, California, earned a BA in English at the University of Davis, during which time he was on the stage there and in surrounding communities. We'll have to find out what they were. You were an athlete there. How'd you get into the theater program?
I got into the theater program. I'd been interested in acting since high school and so growing up as well. And there was just the opportunity. The auditions were open, so I wasn't a theater major or a minor. I was just an English major.
Oh, so you weren't writing? Were you taking writing classes?
I was taking writing
you
classes,
were?
yeah, but I got into the acting just because there was open auditions and I still wanted to act, and they were doing shows that I was interested in.
Were you acting in high school there?
In high school? I acted a little bit in high school, not much, mostly sports.
But mostly sports.
Yeah.
But it's funny, a lot of sports guys, gals, go into acting. More so than writing. Did you think you were going to be writing?
I've always enjoyed words. So I've always enjoyed reading, and I've always enjoyed putting them together. So I've been writing since I was very young.
And you've had some of your work in fringe festivals.
I had a play I did 2 years ago in the Fringe Festival.
And we just had another fringe performer, Katie Rubin, who was on the show, and she got her master's at Davis in acting, though.
Yes.
So they have a program, because I always think of Davis as farming, agriculture.
I know. I tell people I'm from Davis. They say, "Oh, how are the cows?"
Exactly. Or do you have a farm? Or do you have a farm?
Right, yeah.
And
Did not have a farm, no.
You're close to Sacramento, though. Did you act in Sacramento?
I did do some acting in Sacramento.
Because they have that great summer, what is it, musical theater, right?
Musical theater. I'm not a musical guy.
You're not
but,
singing?
It's better for everyone else if I don't sing.
No singing and dancing?
No singing and dancing.
Just
writing and acting. Yeah.
Just creative plays. And you've written 6 full-length plays.
Yeah.
And what were they? Tell us a little bit about that, because one was an award winner, Vicious Minutes.
Yeah, this Vicious Minute.
That's the biggie, right?
That's the biggie, yeah, to this point, yeah.
So tell us that story.
That, I wrote and performed that for the 2012 Hollywood Fringe Festival.
Oh, that's what we were talking about, the Fringe
and,
Festival.
And it was well received. It chronicled my struggle with self-injury. I had trouble with cutting and burning myself for 7 years or so.
When was that?
It was from the time I was in high school, to when I started end of high school, all the way through until I moved down to Los Angeles.
Is that right? Well, what brought you to Los Angeles? That was through college then?
It was through college then, yeah, off and on.
And acting, it was through all that career beginnings.
Yeah, so it was, when I was really having trouble, it was the kind of thing where I would be banking that I would have a role where I would be wearing long sleeves the whole time.
So a Vicious Minute?
Very odd hiding.
Is that what it was?
Yeah,
Vicious Minute,
yeah.
1 minute.
Yep.
And what was that Vicious Minute?
For me, I think it's the kind of thing that it's not necessarily just 1 minute, but it's the minute that you feel like I can't get through this right now.
Oh, that's
handle it. And what you do in that moment. Do you do the thing that is sort of the unproductive coping mechanism that you use? For me, it was cutting. For people, it might be alcohol, food.
I was going to say, they must have there must be other ways to get through that.
Definitely. And there are positive ways, too. And for me, the positive ways ultimately have been writing and acting and creating and feeding those.
So were you, as that continued, did the writing help you stop that action?
I don't know if it was a direct correlation, but it's definitely been very helpful. And I think it's the kind of thing where these are the things that I'm passionate about, and if I'm not feeding the things I'm passionate about, there's no shot.
But can someone else play that role?
It's funny. I heard you asking Katie the same question earlier, and I don't know. When I originally wrote it, I sent it to some people to read, and one woman, and she said, "Hey, you might want to think about not performing this, having someone else perform it." And that hit me. I was like, I never thought about not performing it. I would love, for someone else to perform it down the road.
But could you make it longer?
Could I make it longer?
I mean, how long is a Fringe Festival play?
This Vicious Minute is about an hour and 20 minutes.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
So could it be made into a film?
It could, yeah. Yes.
And then could you add characters? Because you're just a person, right?
To do that, yeah.
One person at the time. So the other thing that you're doing is The Wake.
Yeah.
That's your newest one?
New solo show.
Okay,
yeah.
the new solo show. It'll be at the Elephant Studio.
Correct, yes.
And tell us that story.
So The Wake...
We've gotten out of Vicious Minute.
The premise of The Wake is a guy gets out of a really difficult relationship. He gets dumped really hard, and then how he copes with that. And how he copes with that is he has a brief relationship with a dead body.
Oh, that's what it is?
So it's...
and you're alone on stage?
Yes, correct, yeah.
And who's the director?
The director is Nick Massou. He's a, I've been working with him. He directed This Vicious Minute, and he's an actor and performer and a life coach in Los Angeles.
But he's an actor and performer. Could he have performed what you did?
In theory, yeah, I suppose.
I mean, because he has to have some empathy, right, to direct you.
Definitely. He has a lot of empathy. He's very great. He's very great. So I've really appreciated his work, and I really trust him a lot.
So we've talked about two.
Yeah.
What's the Kitsch?
Yeah, Breedless Kitsch. I was commissioned by my old high school, Davis Senior High School, to write that play for them about...
Is that right, for the high school? That's
yeah,
great.
So I've kept in touch with the theater teacher there since I was in high school, because I did a couple short plays with her, and she asked me to write a play about race relations in town, because there was an incident where a noose had been hung from a goalpost at the school, and people had spray painted swastikas around, and it sort of ignited this debate in town. And Davis is a very small, very liberal community.
Oh, it's very liberal?
Yes, that's relatively... it's not particularly diverse, so the minorities are definitely minorities in the community. So it created this debate about, are these things, are people blowing this out of proportion, are they not? So she wanted me to write a play about that, and I really enjoyed it, because it was an opportunity to explore the issue.
Yeah, how'd you research
taking
it?
Sides.
How did you research it?
You know, they put together a great packet for me of all the newspaper articles that had come out, and the letters to the editor back and forth on both sides of, hey, kids will just be kids, and kids do stupid things.
But we
and
knew it was
like, no, we need to take this seriously.
We knew it was kids. We knew that's where it came.
Eventually, yeah, it came down to that.
So
it makes it interesting. So I love stories about difficult subjects, and I love not taking sides. I love just opening up, illuminating.
Like a journalist should be.
Yeah, exactly.
Like a journalist should be, but not always like they are.
Yeah.
So we've talked about 3 of these plays.
Mm-hmm.
What other ones?
The other 3 are plays that I wrote when I was in college and right after.
And you acted in all of them?
You know, those ones have been sort of just sitting on my computer.
Oh, they're still sitting there.
I've done some staged readings of them, but they have just stayed at that point, and that was fine. It was all part of the development of my writing.
Are they all introspective or autobiographical?
I think they are. They're not per se, but you know, each one sort of springs from a seed of something that touched me personally.
You talked about your teacher in high school calling you back, and that was the time you were cutting. Did she know about that? I mean, was she like mentoring you to continue?
I've kept in touch with her, and I've been as honest as I've been pretty honest with her about
That's
it.
what I mean.
And she knows the ups and downs that I've been through with my struggles with that. So she's definitely been a very positive influence.
Were those struggles just usually? I mean, this is a terrible generalization, but usually with women, with girls.
No, it's interesting, and it happens to be a generalization, because about 45% or so of people who struggle with cutting are men.
Oh, it's almost half and half.
Half and half, which is funny, because I thought the same thing as you did when I was doing it.
Yeah, how do you get into doing it? Oh, this is terrible, but I mean, it's
it's fine. No, it's great. I'm perfectly happy to talk about it. How do you get into doing it? I grew up in a really, really religious community, very almost like cultic. And it was the kind of thing where I felt like I needed an outlet from the sort of guilt and shame-based mentality of it. You know, you're growing up's hard enough as it is.
Why aren't you cutting your hair, or why aren't you doing something else?
Yeah, it's interesting, because it was a kind of thing where, you know, it was like, oh, drugs and alcohol.
Or why aren't you taking
wrong.
drugs? Right.
So that was like at the church. It was like those things are clearly wrong. You know, sex is clearly wrong.
Right.
But then, I don't know, somehow I just landed on it, and I don't know, and that's what This Vicious Minute is a lot about, is trying to put my finger on where did this come from.
That's so great. So do you write about the background, your background?
Definitely. So it's very it chronicles from when I was a kid all the way up through leaving for Los Angeles.
That's a really interesting play to see.
Yeah.
And I can see that at the Fringe Festival. I mean, it must have been riveting, well received. You, in 2009, went to Williamstown, which is fantastic. There's a great museum there, and the community is so beautiful. What were you doing?
I was part of the acting apprentice company at the Williamstown Theater Festival for that summer.
Do you have to apply, or?
You do, yeah. There's an application process, and then they got back to me.
And there's so many really prominent celebrities and actors who work there and
Yes,
teach
there
classes.
are. Yeah.
Were there any of those kind of people there?
You know, Peter Dinklage was there that summer. He's on Game of Thrones now.
And he's been in so many movies.
He's been in so many movies as well. And I'm trying to rack my brain. I know there were other people. Deborah Jo Rupp, who was on that '70s show, was there that summer as well.
So they come and they do lectures, and they also
they do
act.
plays,
They
yeah.
do plays.
Yeah.
I know, that's
Yeah.
great. And you get to be a part of that.
Fantastic.
So right now, you're with the Chance Theater Company.
Correct.
And
yeah.
you're acting in a play called what? Passion Play.
Passion Play, yeah, by Sarah Rule.
Is that Passion Play back to the religious thing that we were talking
Funny
about?
enough, it is, but she writes from a very interesting perspective.
It's a little scary.
It is a little scary. It is a little scary, and it was interesting. It was, you know, I grew up very religious, but I'm not at all currently. So it was interesting going back to dealing with religion again. But she writes about it from a very interesting perspective.
But what religion does she write from?
It's based in Roman Catholicism.
Is it?
So it's about these three different
Passion
communities
Play?
who do the Passion Play.
Oh yeah.
So it's about the communities of actors. So it's kind of about the intersection of politics, religion, and art, and how those things sort of.
And what do you play?
I play. Funny enough, I play
The priest,
I play
no.
the actor who plays Jesus.
You do?
I do. Yeah.
That's why you have a beard now?
That's why I have the beard and the long hair. Yeah.
Your hair's not long enough. Is it still
I
growing?
know. They make me wear a wig for part of the show.
Oh, they do? I was going to say.
It is, yeah. So I can't wait to shave.
So
especially with the seat.
is it like something strange for you, or is it just an acting role that you've put yourself into?
It's a bit strange, but it's just an acting role that I put myself into like any other. So I enjoy it, and it's a great theater company.
And where is that play?
It's at the Chance Theater in Anaheim.
Oh, I didn't know where that
Yeah,
was. And
yeah.
who's directing it?
Trevor Bishop is the director. He's a great director who's worked with them before. He was directed Jerry Springer, the musical.
Oh, I love that. I saw that in London.
Okay. Great.
Yeah, it was
so he
real,
directed
and I
the
saw it in New
production
York
Orange
too.
County
Oh, he did do the
That
projection?
won or was nominated for some Ovation Awards.
Yeah. Oh, he directed that.
Yeah, he did.
Yeah, that was I thought it was a fantastic play,
Oh,
and
great,
it's got the religion in it too.
Yeah,
it's like
religion
just
stuff
mixed.
to get away
It's
from, you
really
know?
there you
I find
are.
it fascinating.
Yeah, very interesting. I thank you so much for coming on
Yeah,
today,
thank you so
Ben.
much for having me. I
And
appreciate it.
thank you for watching the Joan Quinn Profiles, JAQUINN1 at AOL.com. And we'll see you next time.